Hello everybody, it is Julie. Welcome back to Pages and Pens. Today I am here to check in on my must-read in 2020 list. Let's see how I did. Okay friends, I had an entire list of books that I wanted to read in 2020, 20 of them to be exact, that I really wanted to get to in the year 2020. At the beginning of the year, I was super hyped on these. They had been ones that had been on my TBR for way too long. I needed to get to them. I wanted to know what I thought about them, what I love them, what I hate them. Could I move them out of my collection? We're gonna see what my stats are. How did I do reading the 20 books that I set forth to read in 2020? Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to plug in the 10 books that my niece Charlie asked me to read and see how I did with those. So this is going to be a big 2020 check-in of all the books that I had on my 2020 TBR. It was 30 books. We'll see how that went. Let's start off with things I didn't read. The Hearts We Sold by Emily Lloyd Jones. I have Bone Houses right back there, and I do want to read it. I still want to read this. I did a try chapter on this forever ago and enjoyed it, and I was like, hey, this is a thing that I want to be reading. I never got to it. Me and YA, guys, it's not really happening. Starfish by Akemi Dawn Bowman. This one I started on audiobook. I don't even think I have a bookmark in here, but I did start the audiobook of this. Didn't continue with the audiobook. It's been difficult for me. My audiobooks have been a lot of running errands and car line and school pickups, and none of that happened this year. So my audiobook has incredibly decreased, and I have started to listen to them a little bit while diamond painting, but even that I haven't been doing as much of because writing. So I started it, but I did not read it. Bring Greenwood's The Reckless Oaths We Made. The Reckless Oath We Made. This is the follow-up to All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by her, which is incredibly problematic and deeply disturbing, but I love it. And I anticipate loving this one too. This one is about a very tall woman, a Renaissance fair love interest. I believe this has characters on the neurodiverse spectrum. I want to read it. I still haven't read it. So that's 3 books unread. I'm going to group these two together because they're very similar-ish. We have We Are Lost and Found by Helene Dunbar and Like a Love Story by Abdi Nazemian. Nope. These are both New York. I believe they're 80s-ish, and I believe they both surround queer characters and the AIDS epidemic. I want to read these. Contemporary YA. It's just not been a thing for me this year. Thrillers came in. I haven't read anything else. You know, I don't know, but I want to read these and see how I feel about them and then make decisions on whether or not they need to stay in my collections. I paid full price for this one. I think this one, I don't know how I got this one, but I definitely paid full price for this one. It's gorgeous. They're beautiful. I don't know, guys. I want to read them. And then I also have Blood Magic by Tessa Gratton. It's Tessa Gratton. I love Tessa Gratton's writing. I love Strange Grace. All I wanted to do was read this damn book, and then I still haven't read it. I have the sequel as well. Have I read them? No, I have not. No, I have not. I want to. Still haven't. So, those, what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 books. Didn't read them. I have a list here because I can't find the other ones. I don't know. They're on my shelf somewhere, but I have them like triple stacked in there because space. What is space? So I have House of Salt and Sorrows, and I forget the author's name, but I have not read that yet. I do still have it, and I want to read it. Have not read it yet. I have The Last Wish, which is one of the Witcher prequels. Haven't read it yet. I am still interested. I do still want to read it. Didn't. Magic Bites by Iona Andrews. Have not read that. It's still on my shelf somewhere. Urban fantasy has not really been happening for me, and that's a lot of what that was. Before She Ignites and Roar, and I think Before She Ignites is Jodi Meadows and Roar is Cora Carmack. Both of those were unhauled. I'm just never going to read them. Again, YA fantasy has not been working for me unless I believe it's going to be a stellar 5-star read. I just am not keeping it. So the 2 of those have been unhauled. Then I have Beware the Wild by Natalie C. Parker, which I did read, and it's on my shelves somewhere, but my red books are on my lowest shelves, and they're like super, super stacked in there unless it's a fave. The faves kind of went in this area, and it wasn't a super fave, but I did read Beware the Wild by Natalie C. Parker, which I believe shows up on 2 lists, but at least I read that one. That was like the first one of this list that I read. And then I have others that I read, so let's get into those because I enjoyed a lot of what I read. We have Hello Girls by Brittany Cavallaro and Emily Henry. I did read and enjoy this one a whole bunch. It's very Thelma and Louise YA, and I was here for it. So that one, you know, at least I read that. I read The Turn by Kim Harrison. This one is one of the prequel novels to the Hollow series, which you guys know I love, the Rachel Morgan, Fae, Witch, Vampire series. It's one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. This prequel is kind of how the virus that then turns the world into what it is in the Hollow series comes about. And while I did have some characters that I recognized in this book, it just didn't really... I didn't need it in my life. I do have some annotations and I enjoyed it, but as just like a further look into the world, but it wasn't everything to me. Again, because the characters that I really love are not necessarily super involved in this story, but as a part of the collection, I enjoy it. However, the rest of this collection that I have is like mass market paperbacks, or they're on my Nook or my Kindle, and I don't know that I necessarily need to have this, but I bought this at the Strand when I went to New York, and I'm going to keep it, but, you know, it wasn't my favorite thing in the whole world, but, you know, I read it, so we're fine. Guys, now we're going to get into some, like, faves territories, but before we get into the faves, I'm going to try to just discuss An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. I have tried to read this so many times. I am currently sitting at 100 pages, 104 pages, and I've picked this up maybe 3 times and not been able to get through it. Do I hate it? No. Do I even want to like hard DNF it? Not really, but there's like nothing about this book pulling me back, making me want to finish it. So I'm kind of torn. Like, I feel like at some point I should finish it, but also I don't care. So I don't really know where to go with this one. I don't know. It's very much a torn situation. I tried reading it, but it just didn't actually happen. And then we've got like 5-star reads. I don't really know how to categorize this other than I tried, but it just wasn't for me. Absolute mind-blowing 5-star reads. Let's get into those. First we have The Beast is an Animal by Petronelle Van Arsdale. Who knew? This was very early in the year. I 5-starred this, I believe, in January. This is a fantasy book, but it was so good. I loved this one a whole heckin' bunch. I actually listened to this in audiobook form, but I do want to reread this at some point and annotate it. I really did enjoy this one. Then we had, oh my gosh, guys, I cried so much, The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery by Gabrielle Zevin. This thing, oh no. You give me a cranky old man who owns a bookstore and then has this like child abandoned in there that he ends up raising. Oh my gosh. It was like laugh out loud, also just hysterical tears. There's a whole, it's a lot. It's a lot, and I loved it so much. I don't know why I'm surprised. Again, this is one that is very beloved, and I just, I'm among the hordes that just love this. Like, look at all those tabs. I listened to this, and that's how you know it's amazing, is that I audiobooked this book, stopped and tabbed that much, and annotated in it whilst listening to it. It was phenomenal. Phenomenal. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This was a journey. I vlogged the whole thing, so if you want to see me react to this thing, it's all there in the vlog. There's tears. They're not cute tears, but there's tears. And I had thoughts. I had thoughts, friends. Like, this is probably one of my most annotated books that I own now. This was a gift from Chelsea Darling Reed. So thank you, Chelsea. And now I was finally able to, oh, I still have her little gift thing in here. I was able to finally read this. I don't ever want to do it to myself again. Ever. But I'm glad that I read it. I read Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel at the beginning of this year. I think I actually read this in March. as the pandemic was hitting, like really hitting, and it was not the right time to read this book. I listened to the audiobook and I loved it. But when I tell you that this messed with my head in ways that book, I mean, man, this got me. It got me real good, because this is not a book you should be reading during a pandemic. But I did. And the timing was uncanny. But I loved it, and I still 5-starred it. But this is disturbing to read at the start of a pandemic. The other one that I read was Parasite by Shauna Maguire, which again is very pandemic-y. It's very zombie illness, pandemic situation. And that was a mind-blown situation as well. I really, really enjoyed it. I have the rest of the series and I just haven't continued yet because the headspace was not there. I read that again around the same time as this, like pretty early, pre-pandemic, right at pandemic start, and I was like, oh, this will be great for me. It wasn't, and I don't want to read any more of that series right this moment, but I do want to continue the series, if that makes sense. Let me look at my overall stats for those 20 books, right? I have my computer here. I read 8 of the books. I tried to read 2 of the books, Starfish and An Unkindness of Magicians. I just haven't finished either one of them. Will I finish them at some point? Maybe. I unhauled 2 books. I unhauled Roar and Before She Ignites. And then I have 8 that are just completely unread. The stats aren't great. But if you take away the 2 that I unhauled, it's 18. And then I read 8, tried to read 2. So that's 10. You know, it is what it is. It's not fantastic. Had this been a list of thrillers, I might have done better. Let's jump into Charlie's books, because Charlie had 10 books for me that were very eclectic. She kind of just went to my shelf, picked a book that she liked. She thought they were pretty, whatever her reasoning was. There wasn't a ton of reasoning for it. She was just like, meh. It looked like a good book. I think a couple of them she might have looked at a synopsis, but probably not many. I'll link that video up above or down below as well, because she's adorable and I love her face. But the year before, I think I read the majority of Charlie's books, maybe? I don't know. But this year was not as kind to me. I have another list. I have another stack of books. Let's get into it. Always Never Yours by, oh, it's got the light blue cover and there's flowers on it. I got rid of it. It's a YA contemporary romance. I don't want to read it. I unhauled it. I also read but unhauled Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I also have I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman, which again, I'm going to unhaul this. I didn't read it. So I read one Alice Oseman, didn't read the other. I'm not keeping this. I don't want to read YA contemporary anymore. I really don't. Unless it's a standout YA contemporary, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to read this. You know, I'm 40 and I want to read adult books. And I still want to read thrillers, and I still want to read fantasy, but I want to read like epic high fantasy or something that like really says something or speaks to me and my preferences, and that's not it. That ain't it. So I'm not gonna read it. Similarly with These Streets Are Ours. Tonight the Streets Are Ours by Lila Sales. I'm not gonna read this. I have no interest in it anymore. So that was a no. Emergency Contact, I unhauled. I don't want to read it. I don't know why I bought it. I don't want to read it. So that went as well. Doesn't look good for Charlie's picks, but a lot of her picks were YA. She was drawn to the YA covers, and I don't blame her, and I think that they were probably exciting books for her at her age. If she wants some of these, I'm happy to give them to her, but like I didn't want to read them. Beware the Wild by Natalie C. Parker was another one that she had picked for me that I read and I did really love. That one was also pretty like magical. That was about a swamp, and this girl's brother goes into the swamp, and then everybody in the town forgets about him except for her, and she tries to go into the swamp and bring him back out, and there's this whole mystery because then he goes in the swamp, disappears, everybody forgets about him, but out of the swamp comes this girl that everybody thinks is her sister. Everybody knows it's her sister. They all have these memories of her in the past, and she's like, I don't have a sister, you're not my sister. Freaking out because she's the only one that believes it and remembers it, and trying to get her brother back and figure out who this girl is that came out of the swamp. It's very cool. I really liked it. It was on both my lists. I did read it. The Mighty Heart of Sunny St. James. I still have not read this book. Do I want to? Yes. This is a middle grade. I believe it's queer. I love it. I enjoy all of Ashley Herring Blake's writing. I want to read this book. I just haven't yet still. I Have No One Here Is Lonely. This is like a sci-fi-ish kind of a book, I believe. I bought this full price. I'm Will, but it's not Will. Not really, because Will's dead. This is just everything he left behind. His voice, email, text. It's his digital version. But for Eden right now, that's good enough. I don't know. Do I still want to read this? Maybe. Maybe. I haven't decided yet. I have a feeling I'm going to purge my shelves of all my YA. Like, I'm not going to get crazy about it, but I'm going to hold it. If it does not spark joy, and I don't really want to read it, it's going to go. I think a lot of my YA is going to get purged soon. Because I'm doing some Goodwill hauling, cleaning out of my shelves after the holidays are over and I've got some time off. Because, like, I don't want this stuff in my life. Here's a couple more that I read, though. I Hope You Get This Message by Farah Nasrishi. This is my ARC, which is the one that I read. I actually think I listened to this. No, I read the ARC. But I have a finished copy. No, I don't anymore. I had a finished Alcrate version, which I unhauled because I have the ARC. And I kind of wanted to just keep the ARC because it's signed to me by the author, who was adorable. I really enjoyed this. I liked it a whole bunch. Are the aliens coming? Are they going to end the earth? Is there anything that you need to do before that time comes? That's what this book is, and I really liked it. And then the last book on the list, I read. I 5-starred, and I loved it. A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman. I don't know how she picked a Bachman, but I love that she picked a Bachman, and it was amazing. I 5-starred it. I cried. I love it. It's one of my all-time favorites. Anything that Frederick Bachman does is just magic and lyrical and gorgeous and makes me question wanting to be a writer, but this was phenomenal. Grumpy old man with a heart. Ah, God, the feels. I love it. I love it. I love everything about it. So that was phenomenal. Let's look at the stats because I do have them in front of me. I read 4. I unhauled 2 and I did not read 4. You know, it is what it is. So out of everything, the stats aren't great. Out of the 30, it's not fantastic. I unhauled 4 books, started 2, didn't finish them, didn't read 12, read 12. I'm kind of right in the middle there. So I suppose with the 2 that I started, I'm at least on the upside of having read more than not, but it wasn't good for me, guys. It wasn't great. But stay tuned for my stats because, you know, there's more info coming at the end of the year, but that's it for this one. It's not my best check-in. It really isn't, but it was 2020. We made the best of it. We all did, right? And at least the books that I read, I really, really loved. So that's a plus. That's it for this video, though. If you liked it, be sure to give me a big thumbs up. Let me know your standout from the year. Was there anything on your 2020 TBR that did or did not get read? Let me know in a comment down below. Make me feel better. That's it for now. Subscribe so you know when I put out more content, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Bye, guys.